You can literally be the front runner, and you come into the callback and you're redirected, or you're, he wants to throw some improv in there or whatever, what have you. And like, you can't adjust. It's done.
Over.
It's like it's the first thing out of their mouth. They didn't take the note. First thing out of their mouth. They didn't take the note.
Welcome to Get Scene Unscripted. I'm your host, Jesse Malinowski. We are going to dive into acting insights, meet industry pros, and master the business. Don't forget to subscribe and share. We're keeping you behind the scenes and ahead of the game. Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Get Scene Unscripted. So glad that you're here. I'm your host, Jesse Malinowski, and we got a banger episode coming your way. And so quickly, make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And now let's dive right in with an incredible casting director, Kimberly Wistedt. What's up? How are you?
Hello, hello.
I'm so excited you're here.
I'm stoked to be here. Thanks so much.
It's going to be great. We were downstairs talking for a while, and talking about, well, you had brought up like, oh my God, is this like the first time we're meeting, even though we've known each other for like 12 years?
Yes, yeah.
How often does that come up for you with actors, like in this day and age, like never actually meeting them? And then is it like weird when you do?
Yeah, it's so funny because when I run into them in person, which is very rare, I know them very well. Like I feel like I've seen and known them for many years, and I know all sort of their like strengths and all of the things, and they don't know me from Adam,
right?
Because they're like, I'm sorry, who is this person? Because I'll walk up like, hey, and they'll be like, not sure, So it is this kind of like funny thing where I feel very much like I know you, but then it'll kind of click where I'm like, I've actually only really ever seen you virtually, whether it's a self-tape or on Zoom. So, but it does make such a difference, I do think, when you do get to have these in-person interactions, especially when it's kind of like off work, so to speak, just because you can really sense the essence of somebody and who they are as a person. So it's fun. And it's just different.
Right. Well, yeah. In the self-tape, they're just like always, I mean, I know we're supposed to bring ourselves to it, but like we're just always playing this character with other lines, not our own lines or our own words.
Yeah.
Is there, like you said, it's so much better. Is there something you think, I don't know, I guess I'll say like actors should be trying to do to like get in the room or like take those live Zooms that you guys have to do now? Or like, well, I don't know, what can we do to like solve that?
No, I know. It's a thing that comes up a lot sort of with our self-tape world. I do think that once we're able to work with you sort of in the virtual room, whether it's a Zoom callback or whether we read preliminary auditions, which, now with the new rules, we do, open up time availability for actors to Zoom with us for the preliminary reads. I think that's helpful only because like the moment that you're just interacting with an individual outside of the whole like press play and, they're doing their thing, you can just really sense into just the energy, the essence of somebody, who they would be when the director says cut. Because oftentimes, especially for series, you could be working with somebody for 6 to 8 weeks plus, and you want to know that they're like a decent human being outside of, just being on set. You're spending a lot of time with these people. So I think obviously if we're able to sort of work with you virtually over Zoom, that helps us kind of get the essence. But sometimes I even tell actors, in their slate, if they feel like they want to have some more of a personal exchange with you, even something, like, hey, I'm a really big fan of the show. Thanks so much for the opportunity. It's been great to read for you. Or, if it pertains to the character and they want to say, yeah, I actually, did 8 years of stunts under, this amazing stunt coordinator or whatever it is, like little glimpses or little tidbits as to, either your experience level or just who you are as a human, like, hey, thanks so much again. I think those little breaks in sort of, showing your own humanity does kind of like help us connect, because I know that is something that's very different and sort of coming into the room. But, this world is kind of here to stay, I think, with the virtual access. And, we've been talking a lot about technology and everything on both ends, even the creative teams kind of love that they can be anywhere in space and time, whether it's finishing up their last gig in Italy or wherever it may be, and they can just click into their Zoom in the comfort of wherever they are it can be more limited interaction for them, which, you know, some creatives aren't people, so to speak, you know?
Yeah.
And,
So they're like, thank God.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know, as casting people, we try to like help kind of like, you know, move those interactions along. So they love the access. You know, we can see many more actors in a sitting. You know, I even think, you know, about the New York and LA offices when they were seeing so many people preliminarily live, which in the Southeast market, you know, we've been doing self-tapes for quite some time, you know, knowing the amount of time they have in a day to see whatever role they need to see that day, you know, they're confined to a finite amount of actors, right? So they're going to lean heavily on the actors that they know are tried and true, that they know that they're not taking as much of a risk on in asking them to come in and read with you because they have that time slot, right? But with this virtual access and with this self-tape access, we're well more likely to extend an audition to a new actor, to a wild card, to somebody that we may not know, because we have so much more time to sort of view it on our own time. And it can expose us to a lot more actors, and it can expose us to a lot more actors living and working everywhere.
Right.
So there, you know, there are pluses and minuses, and I do think that if you were to make a pros and cons list, I like to think, and it could just be because I'm a millennial baby, but I do think there are more pros to the virtual access. You can now live in wherever you want. You can choose family and friends and feeling supported in certain environments where if you had to make that big like uproot, I've got to like give it all and go to LA and just strive and fight the good fight. And you're like dreadful and you're miserable in every other aspect of your life. And then you're striving for this machine and this industry that can be pretty brutal.
Very brutal.
Very brutal
Yeah.
and unforgiving and full of rejection. And you can just completely deplete yourself to nothing. So, you know, now you can be anywhere and pursue this anywhere. And have the same reach and the same access as long as, you know, you are able to be where you need to be when that shoot day comes. So,
well, can I jump in really quick? Because I just know every actor that like maybe isn't maybe living in Atlanta that's auditioning for the Atlanta show, that's in like Charlotte or in Charleston or maybe even LA or New York is like, can I really be anywhere? These slates come in and it says, can I work local? But where are you? And everyone is thinking about this. And it feels for the actor, right? I think there's now easier said than done to really be able to work local everywhere, right? So let's assume everybody gets it. Let's assume they get it. Like, can you really?
So I think it's going to depend on, I think, the time frame of when the role works, right? So when we do get in sort of those quick turnarounds, those urgent castings, so to speak, being within a easy driving distance, I would say between 2 to 3, maybe 4 hours of where the shoot location is helpful. It will make casting feel better. Of course, it's always an easier logistic to know they're on the ground in Atlanta, they're there, they can come in for a fitting whenever, 100%. I think when I mean the virtual access and the reach, I think that you can feel less weird about taking a sabbatical at home or being on the road and needing to tape from your hotel room. Or I just think that actors are having to turn down many less auditions because they can pack up their, you know, little suitcase studio, so to speak, and do it from wherever. Being truly in LA and working locally to the Atlanta market, we can do it so long as I think that we know that there's enough lead time, you know, for the flights and the turnaround, and also for the actor to understand that there could be a financial implication in having to book a flight the next day and the production not necessarily being prepared budgetarily to fly you. So it's true in that I shouldn't be all rainbows and butterflies about here we are all over the world. I think it is going to take a little bit of fine tuning in the logistics of just really knowing when this role could work, But I do still think overall you are way less confined to 24/7 needing to be in the LA market or the New York market or really even the Atlanta market. We are often still reaching, even for roles that might work in 2 days. Somebody could be in South Carolina. They can easily get in their car, drive, 2 to 4 hours wherever they are and still be there. And it's great and it's fine. I just think within limits, right? I mean, obviously, if you're in Dublin, it's
right.
going to be like, yeah, he works local to Atlanta, but we're going to have to kind of figure out the travel time. I think for roles that we're prepping for well in advance, certainly not like, your under fives where like we know this could be really quick turnaround. Those are things to consider for sure. But I still think overall, we are seeing actors well outside of our market more than I think we would have been able to in the past. And you can be on the go and do all these things. I mean, we used to have when we used to have our in-person callbacks, we used to have so many actors that said, I couldn't make it. I can't make it. I can't be there. And now we very rarely, if ever, have a Zoom callback where an actor says, I can't be there. We're going to have to figure it
Well,
out.
they're like, I've heard so many stories. People showing up in their car,
In their trailer, in between
Yeah.
between scenes, like you can Zoom from your phone. You can, I mean, in the quality, as long as you have the steady stream of internet, you're good. I mean, obviously there's going to be technology blips and like, the crackly, the things that happen, calls get dropped, all of that. But that's kind of a reality we're just having to like accept and move forward with. And
There's so many more pros, like you said. Like that's a con.
I do,
The Wi-Fi sometimes sucks, but like there's just so many more pros to
there's
it.
so many more pros. And again, it could be because I'm a millennial baby. I've sort of came into this industry with the technology kind of already there. The Fincannons, when they started, I mean, gosh, they're telling me these horror stories about like overnighting VHS tapes and, Lisa would put together these like headshot books, right? Where she's putting everybody in order of
Oh
the way
my
the auditions are
God.
coming up in these binders that she would overnight. She's got, and this is obviously after VHS, but she would burn things to like, the DVDs and she'd put them in like the slots. And I'm like, thank bless I got into this after that era because, and everybody was in person. Actors were having to drive to Wilmington, North Carolina from all over to do preliminary reads. I mean, you think about what was having to come out of the actor's pocket for that and time and getting sitters for their kids and figuring out the logistic to go in and put maybe a page of dialogue on camera and may or may not go to the next step from there. Like that,
Yeah.
talk about hustle. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
I do think, I just saw the hashtag hustle over there. I do think that we do kind of have it a little easier these days.
Oh, 100%. Well, I remember Mark Fincannon when he was here and he talked about exactly what you're saying, everyone coming in. And it was a time that things were financially a little tough. Gas was really expensive. And they had like sent out an audition. I think he said it was for One Tree Hill. And he just got like rejections from everyone. And he was like, well, we still have to cast the show. Like, what are we going to do? So then they came up with the self-tape idea. But he told me something else interesting.
Yeah.
That I want to know if you like have an opinion or an answer on.
Love it.
That he was like, that's what they were doing for the co-stars. He's like, but the director was watching demo reels to cast the guest stars.
Right.
And I was like, that seems like revert, like it. And I'm like, what? How come you guys aren't just casting stuff on demo reels?
I think it depends. It definitely depends on the creative team. Sometimes we call them creatives, and yet sometimes they have to see like exactly what is in their mind and what is in their head to wrap themselves around it. I think that sometimes they could feel like casting strictly off a demo reel would be kind of a risk. It is interesting though. I do kind of agree that wouldn't you use the demo reel to know that you're hitting it home with a smaller role,
Right.
than the stuff that's more expansive that would require more, shifts and more all of the things from just strictly off a demo reel. Gosh, I didn't even know that was going on.
Oh yeah.
But I think it depends on the creative team. I think up to a certain body.
Like, does that happen at all now? Like, are you guys ever casting something like, all right, we'll just do it on the demo reel?
If it is a tight squeeze. So sometimes, especially for big shows, tends to have lots of schedule changes, tends to have lots of rewrites. Um, if we get down to, okay, we've got to move up these scenes to next week and we've got this big guest star role, potentially could recur, all of these things. And we don't even have the turnaround time to get actors on tape. We will have to pull strictly from resumes, demo reels. We will obviously pull from the people that we vet, that we know good and well. And yes, we will be like, hey, due to the time constraint, this is what we have. And creative teams will know. They understand that, you can only move mountains so far, right? And that they're going to have to pick who they pick with what we have. We don't have the turnaround time. So it has happened. It's rare. This day and age, people love to read. I will say in the market that we're in, people are reading even names that you would think wouldn't ever need to read. They do. I think just because we're still kind of adjusting from all things last year and, there's less work to go around. So I think that people are happy to kind of jump on and work with the material. Now we do like to have demo reels kind of just a part of our audition package. Now that you bring it up, I will say that demo reels kind of have been more in conversation. There's been certain series that we've been working on recently where the producers really do want to see it with the auditions, even with co-stars. But I do always want to kind of advise, don't feel the need to throw something together and just tack it on with your co-star read if you don't really have.
Because it could hurt you.
Yeah, it could. And we all know that there's points in your career where you're able to build that material and you don't need to feel the need to rush the process. Yeah, we have heard more of it lately, and it would make sense that, when this was happening with Mark and gas prices and everything, where they would have to lean on demo reels, maybe a little bit more. And again, those pinched situations. But yeah, now they're kind of a part of our package. With the read, got the demo reel. We know that you can kind of do the breadth of work, and producers just feel better about casting you if they're unfamiliar with what you've done.
Yeah. And that makes sense. If you have the option of seeing the actual job done, you're like, there it is. He did it or she did it. I absolutely know they can do it. Why not?
Even just knowing that an actor's experienced enough on set, it's a risk. We're all human beings, right? And sometimes you can get someone on set and they could struggle with having known their lines, or they could struggle with a dynamic or struggle with content. And I think that it's just this safety belt, seat belt thing where when they've watched somebody be on X amount of sets, that they just know that somebody's going to be used to the environment and they're going to kind of be used to what could be thrown their way. Right. Because, sometimes we do get reports of oh no, this happened or that happened. And, as a casting person, we definitely don't like to hear it. So we like checks and balances as well. And demo reels very much help us with that.
Well, I think sometimes actors might forget that, it's just this chain of we're trying to do a good job for our agent and the casting director. You're trying to do a good job for production. So it's if I don't make you look good and you don't know that I'm going to do a good job, you're like, I don't know if I should pull the trigger on Jesse because it's not worth me not getting praise, And
100%.
You're talking about potentially, especially for the shows Finn Cannons have done, you're talking about Outer Banks, Walking Dead that have just given you business for years and years and years. A bad job could literally cost years of income.
It really does. And I do think sometimes in this business, everyone's kind of looking for someone to blame. And, when something happens with an actor on set, it's hard for it not to sort of roll down to this was an issue and it does reflect on us. So we like to be sure that we're vetting everyone. And it also works in the reverse where somebody blows their socks off. And then, it's such a moment of pride, not only for the actor, which we love to share those moments and those notes with the actor, but also that, we've done our job well to the best of our ability, so it goes both ways and it's all a reflection process. So it just makes you feel better when you know that somebody knows what they're doing.
Yes.
Yes.
So I want to say, congratulations, because you started with Finn Cannons as an assistant, yes?
Yes.
all the way
Yes,
now to you have title casting director.
I do.
And so I want to say congrats.
Thank you. That's very
And
kind.
but how can you
Yeah.
describe the feeling of like when, because I mean you've been with them a long time, you know,
Yeah.
and you know I think very deserving to get where you've gotten, but I'm sure there had to be like such a sense of accomplishment and pride. Like, can you take us there?
Yeah, for sure. It's so funny because and I think so many of us think this way as kind of like, okay, you're going to get to the next step and then it's going to be amazing. And then you're going to get to the next step and that's going to be amazing. And then you're always kind of like reaching and reaching and reaching. And that's not to say that I definitely have to have moments of being like, wake up, Kimberly, like look around, like this is kind of what you've always imagined that you've wanted, right? And like, I think this would have been what, February of last year, so 2023, when Outer Banks had their first premiere, because as we all know, Outer Banks initially came on Netflix in April of 2020. That's why it was, we all like to think very much the success as it was, because everyone was on their couch in quarantine, like what's going to be next on Netflix. And they were unable to kind of have that like live in person, big hoot and holler and premieres, right? And so we had our first one last year. And I remember just kind of really trying to stay hugely present in, it being a series that is a regional casting office that we do from top to bottom, which is sort of unheard of in the sort of location regional casting market, that we were casting all of the characters. That, I'm sitting in a theater in Los Angeles and, there's a casting by credit. And, not only is it my name, but I'm credited, right alongside Lisa May and Craig, who have been moguls truly in the industry, in the Southeast and the Eastern Seaboard. And just, their name is so well loved and cherished. And sitting there and just kind of being like, if 22-year-old me, like nervous casting intern in New York me, walking down the hot streets of New York, balancing, I kid you not, like 8 coffees. I've
Oh
got
my
like
gosh.
4 coffee tray in one hand and one in the other. I'm wearing these like flats and my feet are sweating and I've got blisters on my heel, and you're just like trudging through like the smelly hot streets of New York to get all of these coffees to the audition room with all the creatives, and I'm all nervous and all of things. Like if 22, if I could whisper in the ear of 22-year-old me, at the ripe age, I think at the time I was like 30, last year I was 33, and just sitting there and just being like, you're going to be, casting by on not only a Netflix television show, but a #1 globally watched Netflix television show. I mean, even now I'm kind of like getting goosebumps because I struggle to kind of, I think, sit in the success. And I tend to be like, hugely an overthinker and a ruminator and kind of like a next step person. And is this enough? And all of that. I know many of us can struggle with that imposter syndrome. My goodness. Anyway, it's just all to say that if I could just say like, hey, Kimberly, like this is where you're going to be and this is what you're, going to see. Man, it would have felt great to just like whisper in her ear and be like, hey.
Well, if you did whisper in her ear, she would have responded, "What's Netflix?"
Gosh, it's so damn true. Yeah, it would have been like, what? Yeah, what is that going to be?
Yeah.
It's so true. But yeah, like these kind of like these, and I shouldn't even say little, like these big moments, and so sort of traversing that whole like intern to assistant to associate, you're kind of always thinking like the next step and like it's going to be so great when, and it is, don't get me wrong, but I do think that we should all be aware of destination happiness, and not that moment didn't feel amazing and wonderful at the premiere. And we just had the season 4 premiere a couple of weeks ago in Charleston, which was another great moment, but I think just to stay present and really let those sink in, because we can always be like next step, right? Like, okay, what's next? And even as the assistant, I was like, once I'm an associate, it's going to be just amazing. And then when you're an associate and you're like, oh gosh, once I'm a casting director, it's just going to be, and of course there are lovely, beautiful moments, but at the same time, responsibilities, they don't go away. They just shift. They become bigger in some ways and lesser in other ways. But yeah, it is kind of wild to look back and to see kind of where I am, and that this has always ultimately been the goal, and I'm here. And I hope that, you know, it all continues to go well.
Hey, listen up, actors. There's an incredible 3-day event on the horizon, the Southeast Actor Summit. And the Southeast is one of the major markets here in the film and TV industry. And if you want to level up your career, I suggest you get into that market in a big, big way. This weekend is going to have some of the top Atlanta instructors to help level up your craft, your auditions, and help you get to the next level, while also including some of the top agents and casting directors to help move you forward in your journey. If you want to truly level up your acting career and add some unshakable confidence and mindset, you're going to want to join us at this incredible 3-day event. So this isn't just an event. This is the next step in your actor journey to take you to the next level. So I hope to see you there. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I mean, I love that you brought up the essentially like the point that like so often we don't give ourselves the credit, and the
Hmm.
like all of a sudden you stop and you're like, oh my God, I'm here, you know?
Right.
And I think especially for actors, like,
Hmm.
because you know, there's so much rejection, there's
So
so
much.
and it's so easy to just, oh well, I guess like downgrade the successes. It's like,
Yes.
I've been looking for this booking, I finally got one, well, but it's a short film. And it's like, oh, I finally got a network credit, but I only had a line. Or, well, I
Hmm.
got cut. Like,
Hmm.
always cut it down, always cut it down. And so, you know, what you're talking about is just so important. Like, you have to acknowledge
Yeah.
these wins. You have to acknowledge where you started, where you're at right now. And it's okay if you still want to be going somewhere.
Right.
That's great. But
Goals
like,
are, yes, goals are lovely.
but acknowledge where you are.
Acknowledge where you are. And I know, you know, negative bias is a thing. It's like our brains can often be just hardwired to like look for the thing that's missing. But I would just challenge to kind of, you know, look back on your journey and think about like, where did you actually start? And yes, you're reading for this, you know, role that might not be exactly what you want, but think about when you were just like desperately trying to like take an acting class or meet this casting person or get an agent. It's like each step on that, you know, rung makes you that much more wise. It makes you that much more ready for the next step. And I also think another thing that's so prevalent in our industry, I mean, really, it's everywhere, but, you know, comparison is,
Yeah.
and, you know, social media is a thing that, of course, you know, it doesn't feel new, but I think in the grand scheme of things, it's new. And it's, you know, it's like everyone's highlight reel for their life. And
Right. Exactly.
and especially in the acting space too, you're seeing everyone's successes and you're seeing, you know, everyone's content creation, and you're just constantly striving to be enough and be better and compare. And I think it's always good to take a dose of just realizing that everyone's going to highlight their best moments. You're not going to see when they are terribly upset and questioning all of their life's choices and wondering, you know, what their purpose is, because we all feel that way. I was just having a conversation with an actor about, you know, oh, it's so great. You know, you had the Outer Banks premiere, everything's lovely. And I said, it is so lovely and it's wonderful, but we're all so hyper aware of how we're showing up in these environments and how we're showing up in these industry events and who we're meeting and who we're talking to. And we all just want to feel validated, and we all just want to feel important, and we all just want to feel enough. And so I think just kind of showing yourself grace and knowing that even your agent, even the casting person that you're auditioning for, like, we're all just trying to be enough and be good at what we do, and just I think humanizing these social experiences and these interactions. You know, I'm definitely the kind of person to be like, oh man, why the hell did I say that? Or like, you know, did I approach that interaction with this person, you know, well? And I think just realizing that we're all kind of feeling that way, and we're all just doing the best we can do. And even the CEOs, even the executives, like, you see these memes, you know, on social media, which, you know, double-edged sword. Sometimes they can build you up. Sometimes they can connect us all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be like, even the head honcho, we're all navigating daily, being like, I just got to figure it out. I just got to throw spaghetti at the cabinet and see if this is going to stick and see if it's going to work. So I do like to think that like we're all kind of in this to just be okay and figure it out.
You brought up, some of the like kind of like self-talk that we're kind of saying to ourselves. And one of the things that I feel like is interesting that we will do, that I want to point out for the listeners, is that we will, and it's because of the highlight reel that you're talking about, right?
Yeah. We'll
be like, oh, that person books all the time, and like I only book once a year or 3 times a year, whatever it might be, right? And I have become very conscious of that.
Yeah.
And not like I'm trying to like down the other person, but I'm like, careful of the language, because if I'm looking at a peer and I'm like, they book all the time, but they actually have just been on a good roll and they've booked 3 times, that's just 3 bookings. It's not all the time.
No.
But when you say things like that, you feel bad because you're like, well, they do this, which is great, and I don't. And it's like, we have to be careful of that language. We have to be careful of what we're saying. And again, it's not to downplay the other person, but actor A doesn't book all the time. They just happen to book 2 jobs last week.
100%.
They're on a good run. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But it's not all the time,
No.
because when you say that, it makes you feel bad.
Right. They may not have had a book, prior to those 2 bookings that you've seen, they may not have had a booking in 8 years, So I think scale is huge. I just think, like you said, we have to be aware of the stories we sort of tell ourselves and the narratives that we tell ourselves, because our brains are so insanely powerful, and they will sort of pay attention to what we tell them. And our thoughts are not facts. And our feelings are not facts. And again, this is something that like I definitely have to talk myself through. I'm certainly very guilty of all of the things in telling myself. So yeah, this is the psychology of here we are in our therapy session. But I do think it's helpful for people to know that like we are all so feeling the same way. I think ever since I was a child, I never wanted people to feel alienated or alone in the way that they feel. I've never wanted someone to feel awkward or like worried that I've just always wanted everyone to kind of feel like our experience is so similar, and the emotions and things that we feel are so related, and we've all been there. And I think maybe that's kind of what's even sort of tied me into my draw to sort of the art of acting and being a people reader and being like a very intuitive person and sort of observing others recreate life and recreate relation and relativity. And so I never want people to feel alone in their experience. I don't really know where that comes from. Maybe it's like my childhood self, like not wanting to feel alone in the experience.
Are you a single child?
No, I do. I have an older sister, but yeah, I don't know. Here we go. We're just really digging it apart here, Jesse. We're digging deep. But yeah, I guess we can play on my draw to acting. We can get back on track. But you're not alone out there, actors.
Yeah. Well, you talked about Lisa May and Craig and their legendariness, which is not a word, but today it is in the studio.
It absolutely is.
Can you talk about some epic things that you've really gotten from them?
Yeah, I think obviously it's just their overall reputation, their integrity, their openness and honesty with producers to work through issues, to real like navigating around. There's always a scenario that we can figure out. There's always something that we can work through. I think they're no doesn't always have to be the answer. Like, let's figure out this scheduling conflict. Let's figure out, the content issue. Like, let's just discuss this openly. They're hugely collaborative. They never hesitate to pick up the phone and talk through an issue, whether that be with the actor, the agent, the producer. I think that they're, very much there is a solve to this. And I think in a world of immediacy and a world of nope, next, they've kind of taught me to really only move on when you have to. I think exploring every avenue to make something work has been really huge. I think that their taste is impeccable. I think their resume obviously speaks for themselves. The caliber of the work, the scripts, the teams that knock on our door is really kind of inspiring. And I think I've just always known that being aligned with them is being on the right side of the tracks, so to speak. And I see the way they care about actors, which is so huge, especially now. And they've just been really great mentors, and they believe in the goodness of this business. And of course there's bad. Of course there's bad. There's good and bad everywhere. There's good and bad apples everywhere, and they definitely are the good apples. And I just think it speaks for themselves. Craig, 1983.
Jeez.
It's just, and to still have the level of work that we do and the amount of work that we do, I just think it really speaks to who they are as individuals, and the care that they have, and the creative eye that they have, and again, their taste. And yeah, so I'm lucky, and we really are like a work family. And yeah, it's amazing to go to places like New York and LA and be a part of these events and all of this, and we are a household name. And yeah, they're pretty great. Shout out Lisa, Craig, and Mark.
Yes, I love it. That's awesome. I mean, yeah, so lucky to be part of such. I mean, just a staple of especially with the Southeast. Now really, an equal market, you could say, to LA and New York.
Right.
And they really have been. I don't know if you want to say like the leaders, the forefront, but I mean here since the beginning, and really helped build it up.
Absolutely. I mean, Craig and Mark were a part of developing the Southeastern waiver for actors in our market. Prior to, producers would just want to, reach to LA and New York. And because Craig and Mark came to the union and they talked about like, hey, well, if, we have an actor that's in Charlotte and it's just a few hours drive from Atlanta, like we'll throw them hotel mileage and per diem. Like, let's expand on this. Let's allow actors all within this sort of 500-mile radius to come in and still do work. And the whole modified local and all of that, a lot of people don't know that was on the backs of Craig and Mark early on. Even breakdown services, Craig and Mark work very closely with Gary Marsh of Breakdown Services to really develop our market, develop agencies in our region. I mean, so many of the agents that we know and love, they in a way were mentored as well by Craig and Mark. And so they're a huge, huge stronghold and reason why our market has been able to flourish in the way that it has. And it's the reason why I didn't have to, move to LA or New York full time. And it's kind of hard to admit being in sort of the Hollywood industry and admit that LA is not my place. It's not my place. New York is lovely, and I mean the heartbeat of the city is you feel it, but it can't be a permanent place for everyone. I mean, for some maybe, for me not so much. And so I am so grateful that I've been able to sort of stay in my hometown of Atlanta, get in right when the industry boom was really taking off. And that feels kismet. That feels like the universe just aligning, where I can be in a place where I feel successful with family and friends and feel home, but have the same access to Hollywood. So it is, even when I like sit back and I talk to you about this, it is kind of a really lovely full circle moment to kind of just see what could be and what has been.
Yeah.
And, like I said earlier, the regional casting space moving into soul casting and doing series from top to bottom. And, we have another series called The Runarounds that is Skydance for Amazon. And we're also doing that show from top to bottom. And also we've seen where a casting individual, Lisa May, has moved into an executive producing space. And because she and Craig were, so a part of finding the band that is the lead in the show. And it's been really inspiring to see that a casting person can move into that space and, again, not be in these, LA and New York strongholds. So it's looking up, Jesse.
Yeah. When you
It's
see
looking
that,
good.
are you like, oh, like I want to be doing that as well?
I mean, I think it would be amazing to one day develop a relationship such with the producing team that they rely on me in that way. To have such an eye for casting and realizing that so much of the success of a project hinges on the cast.
Mm.
And absolutely, I would hear me, universe. I would not turn down an executive producer credit. If we get there, great. I think it's truly inspiring. I just think that someone, in casting, having the casting eye, moving into that space, because it really is an art form. It really is. And it's an intuitive thing, and it's gelling, it's understanding not only the personalities of your creative team, but also understanding the personalities of your actors.
Well, I feel like I mean, I don't know if this is true or not, but when we were talking about you moving from assistant to director,
Oh, yes.
and you were talking about, like, arriving, getting here.
Yeah.
It seemed like you're like, I don't know what the next thing is. I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm like, and I feel like we have just gotten to the place where we're like, well, now we know what the next thing is.
Now we know. Have I manifested it? Have I spoken it into?
Uh-huh.
I've put it out there.
I think so.
Yeah, I think. I think day by day, right? Staying present, but manifesting it. They say, what do they say? Like, wake up, pretend like you already have it.
Yes.
Right?
You
Do
know,
they
that's so
use
true.
that on? Is that an actor? Would you say as an actor that's something that helps you?
I will say, I'm not sure if that is like that's like an actor thing.
Okay.
I will say, I remember there was a point in my life, I was living with two other actor roommates,
Mm-hmm.
and we were having a great time partying, getting auditions. Like I was just like, man, life is like great. Like
Yeah.
this is so fun. But man, I just don't have money.
There's that.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm just living paycheck to paycheck and this sucks. And I said, and I did that. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start living like I have money. Now, I don't mean like I'm going to just now start putting a bunch of stuff on credit cards.
Right.
But instead of saying like, oh, I don't have money, I can't afford that, I would sometimes just like ask for discounts. I would just be like, I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I swear to you,
Yeah.
get like a year or so down
Yeah.
the road, all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I'm financially free.
Right.
And I swear it started with the mindset of like, I'm not gonna think that way. I'm just gonna think like, nope, I can do it. Like I have the money.
So I think you could use that same mentality. And again, I am not an actor. What you guys do, again, it truly does blow my mind. I have so much respect for what you guys do because it's the hardest thing in the book. But if you had that same mentality when you are self-taping a read or going in for a callback or having a meeting or whatever it is, and you have the mentality of like, not only am I like valued and worthy of this, but like I am actually meant to be in this space and time.
Mm-hmm.
I have been asked to do this. You can essentially be like, I have been asked to perform this service, or like I am worthy of this because of my resume, because of where I've been. Like if you approached a self-tape audition in the mindset of that, like, what if I'm just going to do this as if I'm on set? I've got the gig, I've got the job. How would I just do this if it were already mine?
Yes.
And I do think that it translates on tape.
So
I
good.
think you strip away a level of desperation. You strip away a level of like, I know that I'm being watched. I know that I'm being judged.
Strip away the like, I want this.
I want this so
Yes.
bad, because believe it or not, we see that on the other end. If you're able to have a life outside of acting and do things that also bring you purpose, hinging so much of everything on this one read or this one audition, I mean, you're going to deplete yourself entirely. But instead approaching it as if like, this is my job. Same way as you were a freelance editor, a freelance photographer, I don't know, a freelance, whatever it is, you are providing a service because you have an expertise and a knowledge of the way that it should be done. And so why not approach the audition of like, I'm doing this because I know what I'm doing.
100%. It goes back to, we mentioned this earlier, but like the stories that we're telling ourselves and how, and I'm sure it happens to everyone, even myself, I have to get myself out of it, is you get the audition and you're like, ugh, this is just another one I'm not going to get.
Right.
Why start out that way?
No.
Why? And so it's like you have to start. Candy and I, we don't do it every audition, but we'll sometimes we'll be setting up the taping room, and I'm like, booking is easy. Booking comes naturally to me. This is so fun and easy.
Right.
Right. As opposed to this is hard. This is tough. It's hard to book. It feels impossible. Right. It's the stories that we're telling ourselves, and so you have the decision to tell what story you want. So why choose the one that's like so hard and dark and hard, tough?
Exactly. It's funny, like for people that tend to like think catastrophically, right? Like for us anxiously wired individuals, raising my hand over here, if you can imagine the worst case scenario, why is the best case scenario
Never thought of?
It's never thought of, but
Nope.
why can it not be just as likely
Right.
as the worst case?
Yes. Yeah.
Like, instead of, approaching it, with like, oh gosh, it's going to be this, it's going to be that. Instead of being like, actually, like, what if it's phenomenal? What if it's the best take I've ever done? Like, I do think wiring your mind that way is so hugely helpful.
Hey, are you a parent of a young actor? Then you're going to want to pay attention to this, because Get Scene Studios has what we call our Rising Star program. This program is incredible. It is a monthly program that puts you in front of an industry pro every single month and focuses on what a young actor needs to be focusing on, which is auditions. So every single month we focus on either theatrical auditions or commercial auditions so they can be set up for success when they get an agent, or if they already have an agent, to really succeed at these auditions and even begin to make money at this. So we bring in different industry pros every single month, and agents and casting directors, and then work on those auditions. So if this sounds like something that you would like to get your child or a friend that has a child involved in, all you need to do is email risingstar@getscenestudios.com, and we will let you try your first month for just $1 a class. That's right, only $1 a class. All you got to do is email us, and we will get you all set up and ready to go to improve those auditions, and then also get in front of those industry pros, because we are Get Seen. Thanks for watching. So you brought up sides. So It's okay. I don't want to say like do what you want, but there's a sense of like
within reason.
Yeah, but I do think like you're like, we'll get caught up on like it. Yeah, says they smoked a cigarette, or says they like walked in. So like I have to do all these things, and it's like I can envision the scene as long as I'm not like just making something up totally, right? Like I can envision the scene the way that I want.
Yeah.
And do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that like there's a level of scene setup that's there that you can kind of take and just use it as a guide. Use it as a guide. Don't use it as a crutch, right? Because inevitably, if you're going to feel so married to this cigarette smoking, I mean, you're going to have a cigarette up to your mouth every 4 seconds. And then like all I'm watching is you do this. And I think sometimes actors can rely on an action in order to kind of like push themselves through the scene or something, or like, I'm showing you that I'm living life by smoking this cigarette.
How often do you see someone with a glass of wine, you're like, uh-oh.
Put the glass of wine down. Oh my Lord. I mean, it's fine if you want to establish, I talk about this, with props and yes, and you're at the bar, and it's like, okay, if you want to establish that you're at the bar, that you're having a drink, like put a glass in your hand before you mime it. For me personally, I know every casting person has like their thing and their pet peeves.
No, don't mime. No. I think that's got to be.
Is that across the board?
I'm pretty positive.
It's good to hear.
Yeah, that's across the board. Do not.
Yeah, either find a way to put the action below frame, whether that's like you typing on your keyboard or whatever it is, or put like an actual glass with maybe a little bit of liquid in your hand, but then, establish time and place, but then don't lean on it. you know, it tends to be an actor habit to lean on props,
Yep.
certain actions, sometimes accents. Like it's all kind of up there. But like for instance, if you are given a set of sides and you're on the phone, certainly don't put a banana up to your ear, which believe it or not, I have seen.
No.
Or even the hand motion like this. I'm like, please, no.
You have a phone.
You have a phone. We all
Hold on. Why
live.
was your phone like this big?
Here we go. You either have you can choose to do the iPhone to the ear, which I will say, if you're going to do that, fine. Just be cognizant of still your face framing. Like, you can get lost in these sorts of like, my head's now like this, or my head's now like in the framing, you can get lost. But we also now live in, as long as the audition's not for like 1918, we live in a world where you can creatively choose to like have your ear pods in. Like put in your ear pods. You're still on the phone, you're still interacting, but we still get this like real life in time. The framing's great. Like you're not, again, having this prop and this action that could derail you in some way.
Right.
Or you can.
So hold on real quick with that,
Yeah.
because I do think the phone one, I
It's a
don't
big
want
one.
to speak for every actor, but
Yeah.
we're like, oh God, I'm on the phone. Shoot.
Yes.
But I think that's a good one. So as the casting director,
Yeah.
you're not thinking, I want to make sure Jesse can act this well while on the phone.
No. Never. Never. I know that you can be on the phone.
Right. Yeah.
I know that you can hold a phone up to your ear. Sometimes what does kind of help with the whole like environment, for those of, in my Q&As and things, I always like to talk about like creating your environment, your business within the scene, like bring us to real life, because we all know that you're in this stilted audition background, like bring me to set, bring me to real life. But so you can also take the phone and you can kind of act as if you're on speaker, right? You can establish your own speaker, maybe set it down, and then you can continue to deliver the scene as if you're on speaker. You could do the AirPods, or literally, and especially for some that are like off camera or off screen, the lines that you're like delivering on the phone or whatever, pretend the phone doesn't exist. Deliver the scene as if you're
Like the
having a real
person's
life
there.
Conversation. Yes.
I feel like that's what I've decided
And it
I was going to
works.
do. But I like the AirPods too. I
Yeah.
think that's good too.
It works. So the phone thing, the prop thing, just don't feel like you have to show every single beat of what the sides are telling you. Even things like punctuation and all of these things like, Gil Younger is a television director that Finn Cannons have worked with for many years. He famously directed 10 Things I Hate About You, and I attended one of his sort of talkbacks, and he did actually have this really great piece of advice when you get sides to kind of just like mark out all of like the punctuation and stuff, because it can kind of trip you up in sort of like your natural inflection of just like talking to somebody as you would in real life, right? The conversational aspect of it. And I think that's a great piece of advice. I just think that you just get too hung up, I think, on the sort of the blueprint of the sides, and just not to feel like you have to hit every beat in every way, because we get script revisions. I mean, scripts are changing constantly. Actors get on set and the scene is changing. So I just think that it's important not to feel like you've got to like stick yourself in a box that somehow you're going to deviate from it and then you're going to be nixed.
Right.
Now, there are certain things, though, that you should pay attention to, where, if you're at the beach, don't audition in a wool sweater.
Right. Yeah.
That's going to kind of take me out of it. Things like, what is the pronunciation of this word? Sometimes like we'll get reads where other character names will be mispronounced. And look, we're all going to have grace for that, because it's not like we can all have, think that of course you're watching every single episode of this show, there's too much content out there to watch it all.
Yeah.
But like just knowing, okay, this character name is pronounced this way, and you can just do little bits of homework. I think that that's something that can kind of, pull me out of it if I feel like you haven't done at least a little bit of homework in terms of the tone of the project, how certain things are pronounced. We all have, we're talking about technology, so much at our fingertips. We can figure it out. I think even 5 to 10 minutes of a little bit of research before you get on, you know,
100%.
you're going to have that. So, yeah, some tips and tricks.
Yeah, and speaking of, because I know we talked about this before, and I said I wouldn't bring it up, but now I have to. ChatGPT will tell you how to pronounce that name.
ChatGPT. We're hearing so much more about.
Yeah, one quick question, and boom, you'll have the answer.
You'll have it. You'll have it. Yeah, I think actors always kind of want to know what am I just going to do that's going to make me completely, entirely not considered, right? And I think that sometimes if
it's not that one thing. It's not, it's like a bunch of the little things.
It's right. It's not. Yeah, it's not just one thing. I think that just being. It's so nebulous, but just being a little bit thoughtful. I know that sounds, again, that's not super pinpointed, but okay, I'm at the beach. You don't have to audition in a bikini, of course. There are rules, but wear a tank top or, again, tone, pronunciation, not crazy miming. These are kind of my initial pet peeves. Just that you've thought a little bit about this interaction. You're always welcome if something's unclear too about relationships. I think a huge driving point of any scene is knowing your relationship to the other person in the scene, right? We talk differently to our brothers, our sisters, our friends, our colleagues, our bosses, our subordinates, our every single conversation and interaction we have is driven by our relationships within the scene. So I think getting an overview of that as you read the sides, and if it's ever unclear as to a dynamic, absolutely always have your rep reach out. I know that's another sort of stilted thing with the self-tape environment, that if we had you right in there in the room, I'd be like, Jesse, so here's the dynamic, right?
Right.
Here's the tone shift here. This is what she's after, he's after, and this. I always like to purge as much as I can within character notes and scene direction in the EcoCast notes, of course. But sometimes that's not always there, and there's nuance. And when agents reach out and they say okay, so this character, Steve, would you say he's a mentor to this? Little tidbits like that, I'm happy to pour into that context. Because it does affect it. It really does. And that's also where additional takes can help. That's a question that comes up a lot. Can I submit another take? Of course. I think if you want to do 6, you're probably overthinking it.
Yeah, definitely.
I'd say I usually think 2. And this is also to say, don't feel the need to. Just because it's allowed, I think that you have to kind of, again, I'm very big on instinct. I'm very big on intuition. If you're really feeling I just feel like I need to show this other shade, show it. Because sometimes that shade may be a little bit more on par of what we need, and we can choose the takes that we want to share. I do think that they shouldn't be these minor twists. Inevitably, even with smaller co-stars that might be 3 lines, we'll get 3 takes of different inflections of, can I get you a glass of water? Can I get you a glass of water? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I'm overthinking it. And honestly, when I see that kind of thing, it makes me kind of take a step back and to be I don't know, because then will they get to set and will they be to the director, so is it, can I get you a glass of water or can I get you a glass of water? Do you know
And the
what
director's
I mean?
get away from me.
Yes. The director's I don't know. So I definitely think show the shift. And it definitely lets us know you have shades. And that you could potentially then take a note, because I will say that actually brings me to, I do think the one thing hands down, and maybe I shouldn't speak in absolutes. I shouldn't speak in absolutes, but I will say, as an actor, if you cannot take a note, it's not looking bright.
But hold on here. This is the real question, though. Is the actor that can't take a note, I don't think they know they can't take a note. So
it's a level of self-awareness, 100%. Absolutely. They don't know, I'll give this what I think to be this beautiful context, and let's play with this and let's play with this shift, and they do it the exact same way. And when a director sees that, you can literally be the front runner, and you come into the callback and you're redirected, or you're, he wants to throw some improv in there or whatever, what have you. And you can't adjust, it's done.
over.
It's
Yeah.
like it's the first thing out of their mouth. They didn't take the note. First thing out of their mouth, they didn't take the note. And there's just no way, because there's so many moving parts to not only like expression and creativity and sets and all of these things. Like if you're not able to adapt and tap into certain other arenas and avenues of the human experience, we all know that you're going to order your coffee differently if you've had the best day of your life versus if you've had the worst day of your life. Yeah, if you're not able to like play within that sphere, then ultimately, like, we're going to struggle with you as an artist, because there has to, rigidity and being so rehearsed is just not, we've had actors come in live in the room and be like, I rehearsed this standing up, which is just kind of like, look, obviously there are some scenes that serve you better if you're standing versus when you're sitting. I'm big on environment and moments before and all of that. And that's great and fine.
If you're in the car, you're in the car.
If you're in the car, you're in the car. And,
Right.
Sometimes an actor will come in and say, do you mind if I stand? Great. That's different than I rehearsed this way.
Right. Well, you're talking about not taking the note, and I was like, I think it all comes down to the actor's rehearsal and preparation.
Yes.
And it's like, if you continue to do it the exact same way over and over, looking in the mirror or whatever.
Yes.
So it's like when you're getting those lines down, CSA has to tell you don't have to memorize, right? But
It's in
when
the
you're
fine print.
Yeah, but when you're getting the lines down, walk around, do push-ups, do jumping jacks, do it in the shower, like do it everywhere, because it allows it to be more malleable to be able to take the note.
100%, 100%. And I will say, even too, with like the whole like not memorizing and stuff, and of course there's creative ways to have your sides in the frame and whatever. I will just say that, it not at least knowing 85%, it could hinder you. It could hinder you. You lose the discovery. You lose kind of like the sort of listening energy exchange. Because what you're doing when you're listening is just as, I was like, I gotta lean in here. No, what you're doing when you're listening is just as valuable as when you're actually speaking. So it is better to obviously have it committed as much as possible. I know it's homework. I know it's hard, but you will only put your better foot forward. It's only going to help you as an actor the more that you know. But I love that you touched on sort of like the doing the push-ups or like the running, because that also, in a way, especially if the scene, for instance, like something that would kind of turn me off is if the scene is you're on a run around like Central Park, and an old fling stops you in your tracks, and the scene starts and you're just like, oh, hello. I'm like, no, you've just been running. Okay. So we all know what that feels like when you're running, and then like you see someone, and you're sort of stopped midway. Like, you're going to have a breath pattern about you. You're going to kind of be like, oh, hey, yeah, you're going to have this like moment before of where you are that's automatically going to like, ooh, I'm watching real life.
Yes.
I'm peering in. What is this juicy interaction? Like, we all know what it's like to like run into an old fling when you're caught off guard and you're running and you're sweaty and like you may not have makeup on and your under eye bags or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, but these are like the juicy bits that I challenge actors when they do get these sides and they do get these dynamics. And again, much easier said than done. I am on this side of the casting couch. I commend and applaud all of you. Just to kind of pull from those real world interactions that we all know and love, that we all know when we watch something and we get that feeling of this or that feeling of that. And then just doing what you can to kind of like recreate these interactions. Because my favorite thing as a casting person is just to feel like I'm watching real life unfold.
Yes. Dolly.
No, we love it because it's real life.
That's true. Real life dog barking.
Here we are.
Oh, before we get to the spotlight sign off,
Okay, yeah.
I have to ask you this. I brought in some new little things for year 2 of the podcast. And so the one I'm throwing your way is, I want to know a turning rejection into success moment in your life. A time where you thought, this is not going well, this is going bad. But then looking back, you're like, wow, that either turned into a big moment or a big learning moment or something like that.
Oh gosh, I feel like there are like throughout the day there can sometimes be these like little micro maybe like it's always hard for me to kind of like zone in on like one major big moment. I feel like sometimes there's just like these daily moments of defeat, maybe that um, I kind of have to then just, take a step and like learn from it. I think um, sometimes if there's like, and can it be micro? Does it have to be major?
No, it can be
Okay.
whatever.
Yeah, I think, yeah, there can be these little micro moments of sort of defeat or failure, so to speak, um, where, maybe there was like a nuance in the script that was missed, something that, the actor may be required to do that we missed. And then we get down to it and we've got to do some recon and figure it out, or go down a different avenue. And I think as a casting person, sometimes I'm always just like, dang it, like you shouldn't have missed that. I tend to be a little bit more of a perfectionist and fairly hard on myself. And I think that can sometimes play into the imposter side of it. But I will say sometimes when that happens, when something is missed and then we are kind of able to recon and go back through, oftentimes kind of a beautiful flower grows in its place where like we end up finding somebody that is just like so perfect for it, or had this really great experience as a human that's only going to then play more into the role. Like I think that we kind of find these little gems sort of out of these scenarios that are less than desirable, or a director falls in love with somebody and we've missed something in the avail, or we've missed that they are completely under contract elsewhere, and then we've got to pivot and we've got to get studio involved and all of these things. And I think as just a casting person, that's scary, because you never want to feel like somehow you dropped the ball or you missed something. One thing I am learning, that there is so much that is out of our control, A, and B, that you can then just take that, and in the next situation, you're going to comb through more thoroughly. You're going to figure it out. But I do think out of these little moments of, I guess you could say, rejection as a casting person, and that like you didn't do something great, or yeah, a little micro disappointment, rejection. Somebody points something out of like, oh, well, we got this actor on set and, we didn't love it or whatever, that somehow something good comes out of it, and that there kind of like is this silver lining. And something that I do think the Vin Cannons have always kind of like, been led by is that like what's meant to be will be. And somehow it all really does kind of work out in the end. It's like, if it's not going to matter in the next 5 weeks, then like you shouldn't spend, I don't even know if that's a good time frame. If it's not going to matter in 5 years, don't spend the next 5 minutes, belaboring it and worrying about it and perseverating about it, which,
That's good.
again, I feel like so many of the things that I'm saying, much easier said than done. I'm working on it myself, but I do think that,
Well, that's why we got to keep hearing
yeah,
it.
absolutely.
That's why we're here right now.
And I can hyper focus on these, like, again, these little moments of a quote unquote failure where you've missed something that your job title should cover. Somehow in the end, it ends up blossoming. And I then just take that as a lesson to take with me to the next. Sorry, it wasn't super specific, Jesse. I know that we need some more of the tea here.
No,
but,
I like it.
yeah.
I mean, well, because when you said like, oh, we may have missed something, then
Yeah.
when we go back to it, then it kind of blossoms into
It
this flower.
blossoms.
I think it's a very small story to bigger pictures in our life that we're probably putting all this focus on
Yeah.
as these big failures. And
Yeah.
it's like, you got to wait for that flower to blossom.
Right. You can apply these tools in many arenas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this now is the spotlight sign off. It's
Okay.
5 questions to end strong.
Okay.
The first one is, what's something you're incredibly grateful for today?
I am incredibly grateful for my home. And I don't mean that in like a materialistic way of like, oh, I have a home. I absolutely love the space and energy with where I live. It just feels like a home. It is my place. I am incredibly grateful. I look around every day and I'm like, this home is just so precious. And I do feel like it's one thing that I really try very hard not to take for granted, because it is the essence of me. It is my safe place.
Do you continue to add to it? Do you
like I continue to like bring
do you have like
things.
projects?
Yeah, I continue to like zhuzh here and there to make it even more of my place. I think in a world where so many of us, are working from home or working remote or on the go, just to have a place that like you come back to, or that, you're just in and you feel so held by. I don't ever want to take that for granted. I definitely look around and I'm like, there are so many people in our world that don't even have a semblance of this. And so I'm very, very, truly grateful for my home and also the relationship with my mom.
I love. Oh, wait, so the mom in there at the very end.
I know I shouldn't have. Love you, mom, so much. I would say my home and my mom. Like I think when I'm meditating, and which I should get back to. I used to be really good about my meditation practice.
Hold on, you're beating yourself up. We've
I
already talked
know.
about this. Instead of
Here
saying
I
I should,
am.
be like, I'm so grateful for when I do it, and I'm starting to get better at doing it more often.
Yes, here we go. Yes. Yeah, I think when I immediately what pops to mind is my home and my mom. Those two things.
I love it.
Yeah, my
I'm
home
gonna
and
give
my
a shout
mom.
out to my mom right now too. Then
Yes.
love you, mom.
Yeah, she's we're just two gals doing life together, and yeah, it's not lost on me that's both things are very precious to have, a parent that you're very close to, and to have a safe haven, a home.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Question 2 is,
Yes.
what is a book, TV show, or movie that changed the trajectory of your life?
Oh my word. Trajectory of my life. Gosh, I'm trying to think back to what kind of inspired my casting bug, I guess you could say. I think growing up, my dad was a very big movie guy, a very big Kimberly, this actor, he was in this movie, and this movie, and this movie. He had a great photographic memory. I also have a great photographic memory. And I think I just always kind of grew up knowing the best movies, and the things to watch. And when I say the best movies, I mean we're talking the original Ghostbusters. We're talking
Yeah.
Jurassic Park, 1994.
Yeah.
We're talking the Star Wars trilogy. I just feel from a very young age, I was kind of watching the blockbusters, kind of building the sort of repertoire of the actors we all know and love, what they'd been in. So I don't know if there's one singular thing, but I do think that growing up with my dad and loving Friday night movie night, and we would every Friday, he would take my sister and I to Blockbuster, and we would choose the movie that we wanted to rent. And it was always the kind of the same cycle of these 5 movies. And now thinking back, I'm why didn't we just buy the movie on VHS? But I think that whole childhood experience changed, I think ignited sort of my, thirst for the movie business, and just that recall of everything that this actor had done. Literally, my dad, we'd watch the Charlton Heston movies of the 10 Commandments. We'd watch these big, I don't know, all of It's a Wonderful Life, all of these just strongholds. So I think that is what kind of changed my life and my career and where I am. Dad and those Friday night Blockbuster movies.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, Blockbuster. R.I.P.
Yeah. Right.
R.I.P. Number 3 is, what's something in your daily routine that you really cherish?
Okay. It's so funny because I would say I'm not a morning person, and that I'm not necessarily an early riser. But once I am up and at 'em, I love walking down into my kitchen, opening up my blinds to see my bird feeder, and it sounds just 85 over here. No, it's the little things, everyone.
When we were in our 20s, we're you know what you're really gonna like? Your bird feeder.
And it's so silly, but I love my little Cinderella moments of seeing the chipmunks, and I've got this owl. I have this owl that visits me every single day. Just I think seeing the sunlight. I have really great light in my home. Seeing the sunlight come through and making my cup of tea. I'm a tea person.
You're staying true to this
my cuppa.
85-year-old. You're
Yes,
staying true.
I'm staying true to it. Putting, the water in the kettle, and making my cup of tea, and feeling that warm mug in between my hands, and just looking outside and seeing the sunlight. That little moment, it's kind of my start of trying to stay present. And even though it's not super early in the morning, it feels very sacred to me. So I think that's
awesome.
kind of in my routine, is just coming down, see the sunlight coming through, my cup of tea.
I love that.
Yeah,
I think
and
that's awesome.
my bird feeder. I'm at the hottest restaurant in town when it comes to the bird. But
Yes. Number 4 is, what is something you're currently trying to improve in your life right now?
okay.
Miss Perfectionist, you can't say everything.
I know. I'm like, let me name every single thing on the list.
Yeah.
No, I think like I touched on earlier, sort of like destination happiness, like sort of, you always think that like, oh, if I just get to take this 3-week trip in Europe, or if I just get this award, or if I just get this recognition or this acknowledgement, or if I just lose this much amount of weight, that like somehow the clouds are going to clear and you're going to be saved from your own life or something. I think knowing that no matter what, like life will have challenges, no matter what, life will be difficult. There's this really great sort of philosopher, I guess you would call him. His name's Eckhart Tolle. And he talks about the power of now and staying present and realizing that like the future is really kind of an illusion. And all that we actually really have is now, which is it, when you think about it, like it is the truth, like time and space and now and these words and this moment and in this room. And we're always kind of like in this virtual reality. And I think, yeah, the key to not feeling destination happiness is presence, is gratitude. These are tools that obviously everyone's sort of talking about it, but actually, and the ideas are lovely and wonderful, but I think actually feeling it is something that I'm really trying, because I can sort of be a ruminator and, tend to have some negative bias. And so I think really actually feeling it in my bones that the gift that we have is now, and that no matter what we seemingly feel like we've achieved or will achieve, there will always be challenges. There will always be something greater than. There will always be something else. And so it's powerful to cherish what you have now in this moment, and that, it's not the knight in shining armor or the weight loss or the award that's ever really going to like fix something or make something click or give you this aha moment. But I do think that gratitude and presence will give you the aha
100%.
moment.
Yeah, so good. I mean, and I think it's such a great reminder. And it's interesting how many people come on the show, and that is what they're working on.
That's their thing.
Yeah,
we got to work on it.
Yeah, we really do.
Chat GPT. No, I'm kidding.
Actually, ChatGPT will, if that's what we're going to do after this.
Okay.
We're going to have ChatGPT give us a game plan on how to practice this better in our life.
Perfect.
All right.
All right.
Last question is,
Okay.
we've gone over a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
But and it could be something we already said, or it could be something brand new.
Okay.
But what is something, if you wanted to make sure the listeners got one thing, absolutely, what would it be?
The listeners to get one thing. Oh my gosh.
Get a bird feeder.
Get a bird feeder. Open up a bird restaurant. No, I think that so much of our experience is similar, that like you're not alone. The Sixth Sense. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, I think I've always, again, been after kind of like maybe lots of things that we've touched on, but just that like not to feel alienated in your own experience. Because I think we're kind of all after the very similar things: to be loved, to be accepted, to feel safe. And there are certain tools that can help us get there. And I'm definitely not Gandhi or anything, but we're trying.
I love it.
Okay.
I love it. Kimberly, so incredible. You were fantastic. This
you.
really was such a great time.
I'm so glad. It's been fun.
It has been fun. Everyone, I hope you've also enjoyed. If you have, please comment, leave a review, subscribe, and send it to a friend. If there's a friend that you think would get a lot out of this, send it their way now. Any last words?
No, TTYL.
All right. Love it. Everyone, thanks so much for being here. Thanks for watching Get Scene Unscripted. We'll see you on the next one.